everybody, welcome back to Let's Talk. I'm your host, John, and today here on the channel, we're going to be talking about Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, and its 4K Blu-ray that just came out. But before we get into that 4K Blu-ray review, I always like to give a quick film review, and this film is no different. So if you don't want to know anything about Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, and you're just here for that 4K Blu-ray review, you guys can skip ahead to that right now. And also, guys, before we start the film review, if you haven't seen Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning, I am going to spoil the hell out of this film right now, so you guys should also skip ahead to that 4K Blu-ray review, because I don't want to ruin it for you if you haven't seen this one. But anyway, earlier this year, what supposedly is the final Mission Impossible film was released in theaters, cleverly named Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning, which was originally supposed to be Dead Reckoning Part 2. And make sure you take a shot every time you hear a character say reckoning in this fucking film, because my god, they got pretty crazy with that. And unfortunately, as much as I love the Mission Impossible franchise, this film really sent the entire franchise out on a real bummer.
Bummer. Huh? This is a bummer, man. That's a bummer.
And that really kind of sucks, because I absolutely love this franchise, and they really felt like they were escalating to something big, this big conclusion. The Mission Impossible franchise, when it first was released back in 1996, it was designed to be, obviously, a Tom Cruise vehicle. He was a producer on that one. I think it's actually the first film that his production company actually did. They really wanted to do the Mission Impossible franchise, and each film in the franchise was going to be directed by somebody new. That's why the first film you had Brian De Palma, the second film you had John Woo, the third film you had J.J. Abrams, the fourth film you had Brad Bird, but by the fifth film in the franchise, Christopher McQuarrie came into it for the first time in the directing chair. He did help out on Ghost Protocol with some of the sequences, but now he was going to be full frontal in...
What did you say? What the fuck did you just say?
He was going to be at the front of the franchise along with Tom Cruise, and it really became the two of theirs baby. He would direct every film going forward until we got to right here, the eighth film in the franchise, Final Reckoning, and they started to kind of evolve. As good as I thought as good as their relationship started, they really started to become more about the stunts of the film, and then kind of designing the plot of the film and the story of the film around the actual stunts that they set up. And the stunts are what they were selling the movies on, really starting with the last film, Dead Reckoning Part 1. If you remember the trailers and being in theaters, they were showing off all the stunts in the movie, and that was really what they were banking on, getting asses in seats. And honestly, the last two films have kind of been a downer at the box office as well for them, so they really did send this out on a low note, which really does suck, because it felt like from Mission Impossible 4 we were just on that incline, and then unfortunately we hit this film and it just feels like they took a lot of big swings and just had a lot of big misses. They did what a lot of other franchises do, which is something that the Mission Impossible franchise never was. You could always watch these movies in a bubble and not necessarily have to worry about answers to previous films' questions, like the rabbit's foot in Mission Impossible 3. Nobody knew what the fuck the rabbit's foot was, but once we got to this movie, they had to overly explain what that was and have it tied directly into the convoluted plot that is this movie. The amount of exposition dumps that you will have in this movie will make your head spin. If your plot has to be that convoluted that you have to have clever editing tricks or, story structure tricks where you have to show what we're going to see in a little bit numerous times, I think you got a little too far out in the weeds. We did this in the previous film with Dead Reckoning Part 1, but the plot was a little less convoluted. And speaking of Dead Reckoning Part 1, which is now just Dead Reckoning, you set up such characters like the Gabriel character. He's interesting enough, not acted the best, but he's interesting enough, and you set him up as being tied to the Entity, the big AI villain. Of course, AI bad. This is a movie made by Hollywood, and Tom Cruise is going to be anti-AI like most of Hollywood is, like I am. And we got to make sure we let the audience know AI bad. We already did know that, but the Entity is our main villain in these two films. Gabriel was kind of the mouthpiece in the last one, but now Gabriel, he wants to actually beat the Entity himself and become the true world leader, while Tom Cruise and his gang just want to get the Entity and take it out of everyone's hands, because he knows whoever has control of the Entity will unfortunately control the entire planet. So they want to make sure that that doesn't end up in any of the superpowers' hands, including America. And this movie made sure to let you know which country's nuclear bombs are going to be under the control of the AI. They have a big board to let you know. This is where we get to see a lot of people such as Nick Offerman's character, Holt McNairy's character, a bunch of like little characters who pop up in here and like kind of waste their performances because they're just on these sets in one room. Kind of sucks if you ask me. They're just very wasted, very one note, very underwritten characters. Again, more exposition to show us like if we don't stop this soon, we have a legit ticking clock in this movie. Like it's legit right there the entire time. And of course, it's a Mission Impossible movie. It's going to run down to the very second. But you know, we always knew that, but it never felt so forced. The script never felt so lazy as it does in this movie. Like, you know, the Shea Wiggum character, he was fine in the last movie. Like, when we get to his character's end arc, like, we didn't have to tie him all the way back to Jim Phelps in the first movie. There was no reason. Nobody was asking for him to be Jim Phelps' son. We didn't need to have that tie-in. Felt like an MCU, DCU kind of thing in a Mission Impossible movie, which, again, this franchise never did until we actually got to this movie. And, again, we have to make us... They try and make us think he's going to shoot him at the very end. Like, he pulls his gun out, he turns it and puts it in his other hand, grabs the handle, and he finally fucking shakes Tom Cruise's hand. Thanks for saving the country. And, you know, the stakes in this movie, we do lose one of the best main characters in the entire franchise. The only other actor who appears in all the other movies, Ving Rhames' character. You know, we lose him. We lose Luther in this movie, and it didn't quite hit me emotionally at the beginning, but hearing him, you know, kind of narrate the very end of the movie as we close out and close all these story arcs, yeah, it did kind of work. So it's not a complete waste of a film because, like I said, those action set pieces that the whole movie revolves around, the two big ones, you know, the one underneath into the submarine, and then, of course, the big one with the planes at the very end that's right on the cover of most of the movie posters. Like, those are fucking awesome, and you love to see that kind of stuff. But unfortunately, it's the plot and story around it that really drag this movie down and make it one of the worst Mission Impossible films out there. And that really sucks to say because Mission Impossible is one of the best franchises of all time, and I truly do not believe that this franchise is done because money talks, and Paramount at some point will realize that they have that franchise and they're going to want to dig that out and make some more goddamn money, and I'm sure it'll happen sometime down the road. And it's not like they killed off Tom Cruise's Ethan Hunt. He's always available, and he's Tom Cruise. He doesn't age like normal human beings, so he should be fine in 20 years if that's the next time we get a Mission Impossible film. I don't know. I was very disappointed with this movie, and it was one of my most anticipated films of 2025, and it truly did not live up to the hype. But anyway, let's talk about this 4K Blu-ray that just came out.
One last time.
And here it is, Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning on 4K Blu-ray. It also got a 4K Steelbook release, but I actually got really lucky on this. I don't know if you guys caught this one as well, but they listed this for about $23, you know, a couple of months ago. And then I think it eventually went back up to $28. But I saw it for $23, and I was like, I already have all the other Mission Impossible 4K Blu-rays. Might as well grab this one. I don't have them in Steelbook, so this will be fine in my collection. So I didn't mind grabbing this one at all. You know, it's got a standard slipcover on there, but hey, it's fine. And I think it looks pretty nice. Nothing too special about it. You know, when you come inside, though, you know, this is where Paramount actually surprised the hell out of me. I mean, they've done it with all the other ones, but this one really kind of surprised me. I thought they might go lazy on us, but we got our one 4K Blu-ray. The same exact scan on Blu-ray right here. Even with the Dolby Atmos track, it'll be on that Blu-ray. But over here, look at that. A bonus features Blu-ray. You know, the rare special features Blu-ray. We don't really get those that much anymore, but Paramount sprung for all the bells and whistles and gave us that one. Just like the previous film, like I said, this movie's really selling you on those stunts. The way they did Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning's Part 1 4K Blu-ray and its special features and everything like that. Similar way, they kind of set it up in the chapters around the stunts. It's also essentially a making of, even though they don't really, just like the movie decides not to, really doesn't concentrate on the actual writing process and the plot of the movie. It's mostly about the stunts. You also got galleries and a few other featurettes on there as well, a deleted footage montage. So anything you could really hope for. They really went all out for the most part. I, of course, would have loved a nice edited together making of documentary, maybe something looking back at the entire franchise, since this is supposedly supposed to be the end of the Mission Impossible franchise, even though I don't believe that for 1 second. This is supposedly supposed to be that, so a really cool, like, 2-hour documentary about the entire franchise would have been appreciated, but still, in a world where we get 1 or 2 bonus features, if we're lucky, on a new 2025 4K Blu-ray disc to give us an entire disc of special features, I'm not going to complain that much. And of course, Mission Impossible franchise has given us some great 4K Blu-ray discs. They shoot these movies in IMAX. So all we really hope for, which we didn't get on the last one, we did get it on Fallout, is those expanding IMAX scenes. And we do get that expanding aspect ratio here. I don't think it's full IMAX though. I think it's 1.90 or whatever the hell it is, because you do have black bars, kind of on the top and bottom, but not that much. But it will alternate between aspect ratios, and it is a beautiful looking film. You'll have HDR10 and Dolby Vision, and that was very much appreciated. Now, it's not the best looking 4K Blu-ray that I've ever seen. And another thing about this film is I remember people going through the trailer when it was first leaked, and when I saw it in theaters, a much more colorful film. I noticed that they kind of turned down the saturation a little bit, and like color kind of felt like it was like sucked out in certain areas where it should have been there. And of course, that does make things like at the end of the film, the two planes in red and yellow, like that stuff is really gonna pop off your screen anytime there's like that neon blue, like when Tom Cruise is in that ridiculous, I don't understand how there's even a physical entity like chamber you can go into. Who the hell made that? I want to know who made that. But anyway, getting off point here. That stuff looks really good on 4K Blu-ray. So I really appreciate like stuff like that. But it just looked like it should have been a more colorful film. And one thing again about the Mission Impossible franchise is, for the most part, every film has their own unique look to it. They kind of put their own filters over things. Some work better than others. For this one, I don't know, didn't love it. Just like it felt very artificial at points, which, the Mission Impossible franchise, again, that's something that has not necessarily always been there. So, it kind of felt a little bit flatter in the visual department than I would have hoped. The Blu-ray that's packed in here, that one looks pretty good as well. But again, it also feels a little bit dim, a little bit dark. And there's areas where you're like the hair will like kind of blend in with the background. And I'm like, I don't think it's supposed to do that. I just think it's toned down a little bit too much. But again, just not the biggest fan of the chosen visual style for this movie. So it didn't translate the best of the 4K Blu-ray format. But those big action sequences with the expanding IMAX ratio, mwah, chef's kiss, beautiful. Now the audio, this is some great audio. I would definitely give this like a 10 out of 10. For the bass lovers out there, you're going to be eating good in the neighborhood with this one. Man, it was really packing a punch. Things were moving around. A very good, well-mixed Dolby Atmos track. Again, this is a 2025 film, so you would hope this would be mixed very well. And it sure as hell is. Absolutely loved the design of this audio track. So it is fantastic. One of the best of 2025. And overall, it is a very good 4K Blu-ray release, but it's just not a great 4K Blu-ray release. It checks pretty much every box. It's definitely a showpiece for your audio system. The visuals leave a lot to be desired. The film itself leaves a ton to be desired. But if I was going to give this 4K Blu-ray a score of 1 to 10, on its own, I would give this one a pretty solid 8.5 out of 10. And before I get out of here, I'm going to give you guys my updated and final, for at least a good amount of time, Mission Impossible franchise rankings. And this isn't ranking the 4K Blu-ray disc. This is just ranking the actual films themselves from worst to first. So, little bonus if you stuck around. At the way bottom, I still have Mission Impossible 2, directed by John Woo. Still a pretty enjoyable film. I used to really shit on this film. I was wrong about that. Still very good, just not great. Second to last, I have Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning, the most recent film, the one that you're watching the video for. Unfortunately, this film let me down so much. It really should be the best in the franchise, but unfortunately, it's one of the worst. Next up, I know a lot of people love this film, and that is Mission Impossible 3. There's just something about the look of this film that really throws me off, and that's really the big reason why I don't necessarily love this movie. It feels very much like a product of the mid-2000s. It is a 2006 film. Feels very J.J. Abrams-ish, which again, that's by design. They wanted all these films at the beginning of the franchise to be directed by different directors, so of course they all have their own little flair to it. This flair just does not work for me. The original Mission Impossible, directed by Brian De Palma. This is really the proof of formula. Is this franchise going to work? It absolutely does. The bullet train sequence at the very end is very memorable, just like the Landry sequence, which again they kind of bring up back in this movie. They had to tie it back to the original Mission Impossible. I really fucking hated that fan service, but you still can't take anything away from the original Mission Impossible from 1996. Next up, Dead Reckoning Part 1. I still think this is a very good movie. Even though the second one can drag it down a little bit, I still very much enjoyed Dead Reckoning Part 1, or just Dead Reckoning now. I think they had a lot more fun in this movie. They weren't getting dragged down by the second movie. Kind of a lot how I feel about, what is that, Deadly Hallows Part 1 and Part 2. I actually like Deadly Hallows Part 1 more than Part 2 in the Harry Potter franchise. Feel the same way about this, because this is definitely a Part 1 still to a Part 2. And now we're on the podium, and getting the bronze medal is the first Christopher McQuarrie directed Mission Impossible film, Mission Impossible 5 Rogue Nation. This is just a really good movie. You know, this one definitely is concentrating more on the espionage stuff than the actual stunts. It's still got some great stunts. As one of my favorite openings in the franchise, it's a very good film. Number 2, getting the silver medal, Mission Impossible Fallout, the follow-up to Rogue Nation. This 4K Blu-ray doesn't blow me away, but the film itself is fantastic, has some of the best action sequences. Henry Cavill is the perfect antagonist in this movie. That mustache was absolutely necessary. Got some beautiful looking shots in this movie. It is one of the best in the franchise. Obviously, I have it at number 2. And if you haven't figured it out, I don't think anything is ever going to knock Brad Bird's Mission Impossible 4 Ghost Protocol off its podium, off number 1, getting the gold medal, because I've always absolutely loved this one. It actually saved the franchise for me too. Not only did it save the franchise for Paramount, but it saved it for me, because this one really got the perfect combination of humor and action sequences. Has probably still the best action sequence in the franchise, and you know what? It makes you laugh. It's got Jeremy Renner in it. It's got so much stuff. It checks so many boxes, and this 4K Blu-ray looks absolutely phenomenal. So I have to have that one at number 1 still. But anyway, I'll stop rambling on because I'll just keep going and going. I do still love the Mission Impossible franchise. I just wish it would have ended on a higher note. But that's going to do it here for me today on another episode of Let's Talk. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And if you did, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this video if you could. We also have channel memberships. So if you want to become a friend of the channel, a producer for the channel like John Doe Juggalo, Harvey Scott, and Ben Rondo, you can do that. Or you can even become a channel director like Nicholas Head, Frank from Frank's Media Reviews, Kevin Kruger, Uncle V, and Stone Gasman, or you can even bump it up to the channel bankroll members like Mr. Smelly Potato. But of course, guys, if you have no money to throw my way, I don't mind at all. I just hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, get out in those streets, tell your friends about us, and then we'll be seeing you around.